and good evening again. It's always a pleasure to be with you on a Thursday evening in your sitting room, occupying your phone or tablet, whatever you're using, or your TV if you're casting it on your television, to bring this program to you. It's episode number 29. Yes, we're almost 30 programs in. It seems like just yesterday we relaunched this program on March 7th. So it's Thursday 10th, and thank you so much for joining. Now, unfortunately, this program is recorded. Yes, I had to record it slightly earlier this evening for you. You do know the challenges I have sometimes with the time difference. When it's 9 p.m. for you, it's 2 a.m. for me. So when I do that program live, uh, it means that I'm up until way after 3 a.m. my time. Uh, but I had a few things that clashed. So unfortunately, it wouldn't be feasible for me to be up until 3 a.m. So I decided to record it earlier, as opposed to not have a program. I decided, let me record it and, have those who look forward to the program get to watch it anyway. Excuse me. So this is a recorded program. So unfortunately, if you're saying good night to me and so forth, and you realize I'm not responding, it's because it's a recorded program. But good night to all of you. The regular viewers who are on, good night. And those new who are joining, thank you so much for joining. As always, I would encourage you to share the live. Please just share it on your Facebook page. If you're using YouTube, you can get the link and share it on your WhatsApp status or so forth, so that other people can log on and be a part of this fantastic program. Now, in the introduction, I mentioned that in Taiwan it's double 10 day or 10-10 day. So let me congratulate the government and people of Taiwan on another celebration. I know we have hundreds of Vincentians there, most of them students, but others have decided to take up residency, permanent residence in Taiwan. We also have our embassy or diplomatic mission there, headed by Her Excellency Andrea Bowman and people like Shelby Denny and so on, my good friend, employed and serving St. Standing Grannies at that mission. And no doubt they joined the government and people of Taiwan in celebrating 10-10 Day. So congratulations to the people of Taiwan. Listen, I'm always grateful to Taiwan. I'm grateful to Taiwan on a personal level for what they've done to me. I've visited Taiwan twice. I've been able to get some short courses, training from Taiwan, see how the small and medium enterprise sector is developing and so forth, and growing and thriving and contributing to the economy. But also, my daughter is studying in Taiwan as well. She is pursuing a bachelor's degree there and a quality education that I'm not paying for, but the generous people of Taiwan have granted and given to me uh, for my daughter. So I really appreciate Taiwan on a personal level. And on a national level, when you look at what the government of Taiwan has done for St. Vincent and the Grenadines, contributing in every sphere, education, healthcare, infrastructure development, name it, Taiwan has contributed to it in ways that richer countries, bigger economies have not. And so my gratitude to Taiwan runs deep. It is a friendship and a relationship that I appreciate very much and I'm grateful for. And I know a significant percentage of Vincentians is also uh, very grateful for that relationship because they benefited, whether it's through bursaries for primary or secondary school, tertiary level, post-secondary level education for the children, or through scholarships, through agriculture and so forth. Many Vincentians have been touched by the generosity of the government and people of Taiwan. And so I know the gratitude that I'm expressing also can be done on behalf of a significant majority of Vincentians. So congratulations to you, Tara, my good friend, the ambassador there in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Congratulations to your government and all the best going forward. I look forward to a continued strong relationship between both our countries. Now, on to tonight's topic. Let me say this early o'clock. My comments, my perspective isn't necessarily going to be popular, isn't necessarily going to meet widespread consensus, but it's mine. And for those of you who may not share my perspective, but still look at this program and at least give me a hearing, I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. Those of you who do share my perspective and agree generally with what I express, I'm also grateful to you for your support to the program. So today, I want to talk about a few things in a particular context. In a particular context. Yesterday, I sat and I looked at the welcoming ceremony for JetBlue. JetBlue is in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Now, I remember a few years ago paying 100 and something US dollars one way to go to Barbados, and then paying just as much on Liat from Barbados to St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Do you remember those days? Do you remember the days when you could pay 500 US, 400 US on a return ticket from Barbados to New York, and you're paying the same 400 US on a return ticket from St. Vincent to Barbados, and so you're paying almost $2,000, and half of it is a 30-minute flight. The other half is a 4.5 hour flight. Remember those days? And I really wished and longed for the time when budget carriers like JetBlue, low cost carriers like JetBlue, would touch down to St. Vincent and Grenadines. Now, prior to 2016, we could have only dreamt of that. It wasn't possible. And in the minds of some, it would never happen. Please, I want you to keep in the back of your mind that there were individuals who aspire to lead our country, who looked at the aspirations of our country. Now understand this. Their aspiration is to lead. As a nation, our aspiration is to have international connectivity through an international airport. And even while they aspire to lead, they mocked our aspirations for an international airport. Even as they aspired to lead, they mocked our aspirations for an international airport. That to me is akin to a teacher in a classroom telling a child, you will never amount to anything good. When the child is asked, what would you like to be when you grow up? And the child says, I'd like to be a teacher. And the teacher says, never, not you. Instead of nurturing those aspirations and assisting the students to achieve those goals, the teacher mocks. And to my mind, when politicians who aspire to lead looked at the airport that we're constructing and talked about making it into a groundnut farm, a golf course, and that planes would never land, they were the teacher mocking the aspirations of the student. They mocked the aspirations of Vincentians, even as they aspired to lead our country. But the government of the day, the current government, persevered and made it a reality. And in no time, we had international direct flights. So I remember we started with Sunwing that didn't last very long because Sunwing had its own problems. But since then, we've had Caribbean Airlines, we've had American Airlines, we've had Virgin, now we have JetBlue. So you have direct flights coming from Miami, from New York, from London, all in a space of a few years. Something that the mockers of our aspirations said was impossible was achieved in a few years. I want you to think about that. And when considering those for leadership, possibilities for leadership, I think these are some of the things that you must weigh in your mind. What some thought would never happen or would be impossible occurred in a few years. And sometimes I tell you something, we get caught up in some frivolous discussions, some rubbish discussions, as opposed to looking at the main event, those fundamental issues that give you an insight into people's mindset, give you an idea of how people would govern, give you an idea of the level of innovativeness and creativity that people would be willing to employ if ever given the opportunity to lead, or whether they would just put their hands up in the air and say, well, it would never happen. It's impossible. No, before that, and I'm listing these things because I want to get to the context. So this happened in 2017, the airport was opened. Now, before that, the government built a bridge at Travalcar. Again, something that was thought would be impossible, would never happen. The previous government said it was impossible to happen. This government had it done in a few years. I want you to keep remembering that. On the one end, it was never even attempted because it was impossible. On the other hand, it was not only attempted, but it was completed. I want you to think about that deeply. On the one hand, it was not attempted because it was thought to be impossible. It was something to me different if, for example, they had attempted and failed, but it wasn't attempted. It wasn't attempted. There was no attempt at a bridge. There were studies as to where possibly an airport could go, but no attempt in constructing an airport. If you want to think that conducting a study is in itself an attempt, then you're entitled to that. You're entitled to that. So no attempt was made in the construction of a bridge over Raboka, and you know the difficulties and challenges Vincentians had going from Georgetown to across the Dry River or the other way, especially when rain fell, heavy rains fell, and you saw what happened during the volcano. Now let's look at those two significant pieces of infrastructure. Right? We can talk about the modern medical diagnostic center as well in Georgetown. We could talk about the education revolution. But what I want to bring home, the context I want to put into it is, well, since 2005, 2006, when the Ravaka Bridge was commissioned, the ULP had been campaigning on the Ravaka Bridge. They campaigned on in 2010, campaigned on 2015, campaigned on 2020. No doubt, no doubt, they will campaign on it in 2025. The airport started in 2008, I believe. The construction of it was used as campaign in 2010. The construction was used as campaign material for 2015 when former Prime Minister Mitchell, who's now deceased, made the point that the fact that Dr. Guns as Prime Minister got a plane to land on the dirt runway, was just something that he thought was genius. And in 2020, the completion of the AIA was campaign material. No doubt, the AIA and what it has accomplished in its short lifespan, attracting international direct flights, would be campaign material for 2025. And I know when I looked at the ceremony, even some comments being made to other people's posts, I realized that there are individuals who are annoyed at the fact that people are celebrating the achievements of the AIA. And are bold enough to ask the question, to suggest the question, and I fed up. And I fed up that about Rebecca Bridge. And I fed up that about airport, be wary now. Find something new. And so that is the context that I want to explore tonight. When will it be enough? At what point is it enough to say, okay, I'm going to stop campaigning on the Rebecca Bridge. I'm going to stop campaigning on the Modern Medical Diagnostic Center. I'm going to stop campaigning on the airport. I'm going to look for new material to campaign on because I am exhausted. I will wring out every bit of juice out of the airport and out of Rebecca Bridge and out of resource centers. How much is enough? Do you think that those who are of the opinion that this is old news now? How many times do you expect Vincentians to vote for you for the Rebecca Bridge? How many times do you expect Vincentians to vote for you for the airport? How many times do you expect Vincentians to vote for you for education revolution, the expansion of the college? First of all, it is important for us to recognize the fact that each of these are elements of a bigger picture. And without each of these fitting in where they have, St. Vincent and Grenadines wouldn't be where it is. In politics, and I hear it a lot in US politics, especially in the Black liberation movement and so forth. They talk about people standing on the shoulders of others. In other words, individuals who went before Harriet Tubman, Rosa Parks, and so forth, they laid the foundation, they did some work that what has allowed others today to carry on and go beyond, exploring new frontier. So you notice, no matter what, whether it's Cornel West or whomever, even as they talk about the advancement of Black people in the US today, they go back to talk about Rosa Parks, Harriet Tubman, um, uh, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, because the contribution of those individuals are invaluable and critical, pivotal to where whatever advancements Blacks have made today. So when you hear about when you hear about the airport or the Rabaka Bridge or education revolution, do not just listen to it as if a slang is being used, but understand that these are critical, very significant developments that needed to happen so that St. Vincent and Grenadines can go to another level. And the airport is the most recent and would probably have the widest significance for that because of the way it impacts so many other areas. Very soon, the seaport would be completed, and that too would find its role, find its place in national development and its contribution to national development. So I want you to understand that this is what we're talking about. So whenever, for example, you hear a reference made to the Rabica Bridge, try and look beyond the slab of concrete that you see in Rabica. But try instead to see how that has opened up opportunities for Vincentians. Opportunities for seamless, safe, predictable travel. And I use the word predictable because before the Rabica Bridge, whenever there were heavy showers and so forth, it became unpredictable. You weren't sure what the state of the driver would be when you got there on a morning, on an afternoon coming up from work. So travel was unpredictable. With the Rabica Bridge today, travel has become a lot more predictable. So you can plan. You can leave home in the morning and you can head down to Kingstown, or you can head north, wherever you're going, Georgetown, Bible, what have you. And in the afternoon, you can head back up. No, there were some challenges with some other areas, Noel and so forth, and those have been dealt with using measures intended to be temporary, while more long-term solutions are being looked at. That predictable travel has allowed for greater commerce, better movement, so that now people, Vincentians who lived above the Dry River, do not now have to leave their homes and move closer to Kingstown because of their jobs and so forth to mitigate against the unpredictability and so forth that came with the Dry River. Now they live wherever they are, Ovia, Sandy Bay, Magum, where have you, at Overland, Orange Hill, and they leave home in the morning. They take a nice 1 hour, 90-minute drive down to Kingstown, do their job, get in the bus, head back up. School children do the same thing, head down to whichever school in Kingstown or Adelphi or North Union, wherever. And that is predictable. So now you are able to see professionals. Now they're not moving out of communities above the Dry River. They're building their homes above the Dry River because now it's no longer a challenge, an inconvenience to live there because of the Dry River. They can now live there comfortably, and they do. And so the societies are changing for the better. And so when the government talks about the Rabica Bridge, the government can point to all of those positive things that have happened as the result of the construction of the bridge. And you would be dishonest to ignore those or not link them properly to the construction of the bridge. Because they're linked. They belong in the same sentence. And so similarly, when we talk about the Argyle International Airport, the biggest thing that would come to your mind would be tourism. Not just tourism in terms of tourism travel, but tourism in terms of tourism investments. So because of the airport, Sandals has come. Myers was built. People are expanding their hotels. People are building guest houses and Airbnbs. You know, the room stock is happening. I'll tell you something. If we did not have the Argyle International Airport, if we did not have the Argyle International Airport, we would not have been able to host any matches for the World Cup. We would not have been, let me repeat that. If we did not have the AIA, we would not have been able to host any matches for the T20 Cricket World Cup. I believe that. Now, you can disagree with me, and you are free to do so, and you can put your comments on the program there. But here's why. In 2018, when I first launched this program, my good friend Kishore Shallow was able to get me an interview with the then president of the Cricket West Indies, Dave Cameron. And that interview is there. So I must say, of the last three presidents, I've only never interviewed Ricky Skerritt, but that's because when Ricky Skerritt was president, I didn't have the program. Because I'm sure that got me an opportunity to interview Skerritt as well as his vice president. He was Skerritt's vice president, but he got me the opportunity. He made it possible for me to interview Dave Cameron on Up Late. And I asked him the question. I asked Dave, why is the missing the ground? He's not getting any matches. And his short, to the point, blunt, one-word answer was hotel rooms. He said, to bring an international team here, there's a certain requirement for hotel rooms, training facilities, and so forth, gym, blah, blah, blah. You know, and then of course, when you bring a team and the team brings supporters, you want places for them to stay. One of the challenges to room stock in our country was the lack of direct air access to international destinations. One of they just weren't coming. So you understand what I say when I say if we didn't, because on the promise of the airport, companies companies came, companies came. You had Bokoma that came on the promise of the airport. That didn't do well, but Sanders came and spent hundreds of millions of dollars and now has a brilliant resort, Sandals 2.0, in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, the newest and most fantastic facility anywhere in the world. And because of that, we now had an accommodation that was good enough to host what 4 teams. We had Bangladesh. We had what was the 4 teams we had? We had Bangladesh. Um, Sorry, because I wasn't home. But you guys know the 4 teams were there. And they could have all stayed at the Sandals Resort. And because of the same Sandals Resort, we were able to host a major conference of CELAC in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. So you understand how the airport has led to improved and increased investment in tourism that has now opened to hotel rooms and so forth, that has now opened up avenues and opportunities for sports tourism, like the hosting of the ICC World Cup, for conference tourism, like the hosting of CELAC. And then you have Vincent just going to invest in, you have like my good friend Huggins with Coastal Adrenaline investing in that type of business. And other entrepreneurs have invested because of all of the opportunities that would come with the Argyle International Airport. So at every election cycle, there will be something to discuss. There will be something to talk about. There will be something to point Vincentians to that is a direct result of the Argyle International Airport. So I'm sorry for those who fed up. And I'm sorry for those who tired. And I'm sorry for those who think talk about something else. You would not stop hearing about the airport. You would not stop hearing about the Rabica Bridge. You would not stop hearing about the Modern Medical Diagnostic Center. You would not stop hearing about the education revolution that has transformed the lives of hundreds of Vincentian families because their children have been able to get proper jobs and they've been able to invest in homes and other type of assets. You can't stop because those are the shoulders, proverbially speaking. Those are the foundational elements that were missing. Our population wasn't very educated. We had to deal with that. We didn't have air access. We had to deal with that. We didn't have proper road access. We had to deal with that. We had to improve health, to improve health service, to improve the health of our nation. A healthy people are productive, is a productive people. But here's something I want to put to you. Here's something I want to put to you. For those who say we fell, and some people may be able to relate to this, some may not be. That's fine. The There are many individuals in this country, in our country, citizen ingredients, who years ago, in the 1980s, 1990s, under the New Democratic Party, were allowed to squat. And through various means, were able to, whether it's over time, with help, put up two blocks, start with a plywood, but as things got better, you know, they were able to build a home fundamentally because of the generosity of the then government, where certain politicians allowed them to squat, gave them a letter to take to the CWSA so that they can get a water connection, gave them a letter to take to Vinlex so that they can get a light and so forth. We know it go. We know it go. So there are many communities, Diamond, Camden Park, different places where in Chateaubriand and so on, where people just squatted. And so one of the problems they're facing now is roads, because there was really no formal cutting up of the land. They just go anywhere and build a house and so on, build something that the Lands and Surveys Department is having a difficult time surveying these properties, because when they try to do so, you see that they're building the road and so forth. So it's difficult, and so you have problem with drainage and all those type of things. But that was a challenge, or rather, that is a situation that occurred, and many Vincentians benefited and were able to own property in few places like Fichus and so forth in Chateaubriand, were able to rather build a home on government land that is squatted on. Where am I going with this? Well, this is the point. 20 years later, those individuals are still voting for the NDP because they remember that thing that was done for them by that minister or by that government. Those woke, mature individuals maybe in the 60s, 70s, they voted for the NDP. Their children in their 40s voting for the NDP. Their grandchildren in the 20s, late teenagers voting for the NDP because that's what they meant. And I can understand that. I can understand someone sitting me down on the steps and saying, Mr. Marshall, you see that Mr. Lanomi Haye? You see this house I live in here too? It would not be possible if it was for Mr. So-and-so. It wasn't if it was for Jerry Scott, for example, or if it was for Alkin Allen, who was the MP uh, for North Leeward, I think from 1989 to 1998. Wouldn't be possible without him. God bless Mr. Allen. God bless Jerry Scott. God bless Alan Cruikshank. God bless Monty Roberts. And even though Monty has moved on from politics and Alvin Allen has moved on from politics and Jerry Scott has moved on from politics, subsequent candidates for the Democratic Party have and continue to get the support of those individuals and or their families because of that kind deed that was done for them 30 years ago. Would it be fair to then ask them or say to them, so how long will you vote for that everybody? Time enough, man. There's so many other things that have happened to you, to your family, because of the government, this current government. Why are you still voting for that? But for them, home ownership is significant. Never mind that since that time, the children have gotten scholarships and so on and so forth from the government. That fundamental first thing of getting that piece of land and getting the letter from that MP, Allen, Cruikshank, whomever, to take to CWSA, to take to Vinlec, that is still fundamentally etched in their minds. That's there. And for that, generations upon generations supporting the NDP for that. But you want to hear a leaning forward. You want to hear, do you want to hear the irony of it all? In most cases, if not all, in most cases, if not all, it was Ralph Gonzalez ULP who truly made them owners of those pieces of land. Yes, Mr. Allen may have given you permission, may have, well, not given you permission to squat, but you squat and Mr. Allen and them help you to get the light and the water. Jerry help you, no problem. They give you some galvanized and some plywood to give you a start, absolutely. But you know who actually made it possible for you to call that piece of land yours and own that house really outright and be able to have a deed in your hand? Ralph Gonzalez. Because he is the one who came and turned debt capital to life capital and gave you that land in Fitzhughes for 10 cents a square foot and gave you that land in other places for 10 cents and 50 cents a square foot. So, yes, you were able to squat and got your assistance to get the light and water and so on and some plywood and so forth under the NDP, and you voted for them religiously, election after election for that. But what about the fact that now the deed in your hand, it wasn't the NDP that made that possible? So for the 30 years, that you were living there, the 25 years that you were living there, the land was not yours. You couldn't do anything with it. You couldn't will it to a soul. It's Ralph Gonzalez and the ULP that came along and said to you, but you've been living here for a very long time. I'm going to make it possible for you to own that, to have a deed in your hand. And I'm going to do that for you at way below market value. So lands that should have cost you 5,000 square foot, you pay 10%, 50 cents. Hmm? Or you pay 2%, 10 cents a square foot. And you got that land. And you could now use that land to invest in business, to take a loan to send a child to a university, to take a loan to really build up the house nice. And most importantly, you can leave it to your children. But when you assess it, you realize, but hold on. So you ain't voting for the man who caused you to own the land. You're voting for the party that helped you to get light and water, but no real ownership. Sorry, I'm trying to do this. So how long are you going? How much longer are you going to support the party because you got some support from them in terms of getting light and water on a piece of Scotland? How much longer? You think it's time now? You ain't fed up on your entire. Using the same, you ain't fed up on your entire. Try something else. You didn't think that since someone else came along and caused you to now own that piece of land legitimately, it's time enough for you to stop voting the party that supported you to get the land in the first place? Because the support that you got in the beginning really did not amount to ownership. It didn't amount to ownership. And so all of your labor, your investment could have been lost because it's not your land. It's not your land. So you see the point I'm making. You see, in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, it seems sometimes that you're only allowed to have a political opinion if it is an opinion that is anti-government, anti-ULP, and for the opposition. It seems that you're only a patriot, you're only allowed to criticize if you're criticizing the government. But if you're criticizing the opposition and or supporting the government, then you're bootlicker, you're this, you're that, you're wicked. And sometimes I hear some of my comrades refer to people as being bad minded. I saw a post on Facebook that read, yes, and you come on to see playing. And the person was I guess throwing some shade. Because apparently it's a problem to celebrate those advancements. Apparently it's a problem to celebrate St. Vincent and the Grenadines. So you can't talk about the airport. And you can't talk about the building of the new port, and you can't talk about the diagnostic center, and you can't talk about the Victoria Rabica, and you can't talk about the education revolution, and you can't talk about the expansion of healthcare, the polyclinics and so on. You cannot talk about the nurses we're training all the time and the police officers we're recruiting all the time. You need to talk about wickedness and the government wicked and time for us to go. You know, I started the program by talking about the New Democratic Party has two very specific policies. Two. I think these are the two clearest policies that they have. They've not articulated anything else as clear and as consistent. Because one time with VAT, they were saying they're going to reduce VAT by half and then they're going to reduce it to 12. So that's in fact, yes, they said that they will reduce VAT, but the reduction has been inconsistent. I guess if you give them enough time, they might reduce it by 1 or 2%, 2 percentage points. Because they went from half, which would have been 8% VAT, to now 12% VAT. So it's now they're reducing it by 1 quarter. So from half to 1 quarter, right? So I guess there might be further changes. But the two areas that they've been extremely consistent are the selling of essential citizenship to the sale of passport and the switching of allegiance from the Republic of China, Taiwan to the People's Republic of China. Those are the two clear, consistent policy positions of the NDP that have not changed. So started with Taiwan. Just like how I will continue to talk about the Ramaka Bridge and the airport, and I will encourage and urge Vincentian to consider the importance and significance of those projects, those bits and pieces of developmental tools when voting for in an election. I also would encourage them to consider the relationship that St. Vincent and Grenadines has with Taiwan and the way Taiwan has supported St. Vincent and Grenadines in our quest for sustainable development. And for those who have been voting because you got access to a piece of land and the access was made possible, or your inhabitation, or you inhabiting that piece of land, building something on it, was supported by a politician who wrote a letter for you to go to CWSA or Vinlec to get light and water. I understand. And I like your gratitude. And so I understand the fact that you voted for that individual and the party for generations, your children, your grandchildren, because you've been grateful. And I like gratitude. But what do you think? What about the man who actually gave you the title to the land? You think you owe him anything? Mind you, you've been voting previously because you think you owe that person the gratitude. You know what Vincent just said? I'm grateful. And I agree with you. So for the last 8 elections, you've been voting NDP, even though the person who wrote the letter is no longer in NDP because you're ungrateful. Okay. So in North Leeward, my family Patel got some Albion votes because they got ungrateful, whether it's in Fichus or PTB or wherever. Got ungrateful. I understand that. But the same individuals in Fichus and PTB and wherever who got the same land for 10 cents a square foot from Ralph Gonsalves. How about applying the same principle? Because he is the person who gave you title and ownership to that land. Nobody else. Is it okay to be ungrateful now? Or is it different? Because I know we like to justify it. Well, it's kind of different. How? How? Tell me how different. You've been living on the land for 40 years. You have children there and so forth, and your grandchildren come in the house, and you didn't own it. And then Dr. Gonzalez with Labour come and say, I'm going to make you own it. And a piece of land that really and truly should have been paying $50,000 for, $40,000 for, you pay 3,000. So immediately you are equity in that property there. And you still think that the person that you need to be grateful for, or rather, you're still grateful to a party that no longer includes the individual who made that possible. And you're ignoring the fact that the person who didn't make ownership possible is there, continuing to work on your behalf, continuing to support you, supporting your children, educating your children. And it ain't dawned on you that in the spirit of gratitude and gratefulness, that maybe you need to be considering this person now. Because a lot of what you've been able to do is because of that opportunity that you had, that opportunity that was presented to you through land ownership, and you didn't have that all the time. So I just wanted to draw that parallel tonight. With you, when you say, see, I'm going to stop and get on the program. Not really, sometimes it's just that I get so caught up with the main business here that before you know it, it's Tuesday, and I don't want to ask anybody now for now, Wednesday for Thursday. Sometimes some people do oblige, and I appreciate those individuals. But it's becoming more and more uh, hectic. Sometimes I just do the program on my own. But I do intend to have guests, and I will start having guests. Or I haven't stopped having guests, but I just haven't been able to secure work on securing guests for the last couple of programs. But that's fine because I get to chat with you one on one. And I prefer to do it live, but you know how it is, as I explained earlier in the program. So the point is no, we ain't fed up. And no, we ain't going to stop. And yes, you're going to hear about them. Well, at least I will talk about them because I understand the significance. And I want to help you to see that. I understand what they mean, and I want to share my perspective with you. I recognize that these were critical pieces of infrastructure necessary to take us to the next level. And I'm sharing that with you. I understand that without those things being done, or rather, their absence led to a significant retardation of our development. We couldn't develop as quickly, as systematically, and as totally as we should have without those critical pieces of infrastructure. And now that we've put them in place, now that they're there, the airport, the bridge, the education system, and the health system, and so on, you can see how working together, St. Vincent and Grenades is moving forward and moving forward at a rapid pace. Or some individuals may disagree with my description there, and I welcome that disagreement, and I welcome a challenge where we can talk man to man on those differences. Absolutely, but we're moving forward and rapidly. And so it makes sense for anybody who's been responsible for that development that has taken place to consistently and constantly remind you of it so that you can understand how far we've come and ask for a mandate to build on that. Because ultimately, that's what's going to happen. Build on the successes that have been created. So you're going to hear about those things going forward. And so, in the same way, you could remind your children of the fact that somebody wrote a letter for you. You know, when I got a piece of land and Mr. This or Mr. That wrote a letter for me, and I can't grateful. Maybe now you could say to them, but you know what? In all the years I've been living here, I never had a deed. And it's Dr. Gonzalez who made that possible. And that's the same deed I used to borrow money to send to university. Or that's the same deed I borrowed I used to borrow money to fix up the house. And the downstairs I renting out now. That's the same deed I use to buy the truck. And the first bale of cement and so on to start to make the blocks, which is the thriving business we have now. And I'm grateful to Dr. Gonzalez for giving me that deed, for making it possible for me to get that deed at a cheap rate. You see the connection? Remember I said to you that it's a particular context to developing. How long? How long we going to talk about airport? Well, as long and even longer. You've had people voting for squatters' rights. And they voted for squatters' rights even after Dr. Gonzalez gave them title. They didn't start to vote for title yet. They still voting for squatters' rights. I'm encouraging them, listen, you're voting now for squatters' rights because the real pride is in ownership. And we'll give you that opportunity, Dr. Gonzalez. And like you will say, how are you ungrateful? How you ungrateful? So you on a personal level can celebrate home ownership, title to your land, the education of your child, improve health services across the country so that you don't have to come to town anymore to get basic services, and so much more. And when you look at all those things, you say to yourself, I can't grateful. I can't grateful. And your support is needed to build on those going forward. And with that, we've come to the end of tonight's program. I want to thank you so much for joining. And I hope you shared it, eh? I hope you shared it. See you on Sunday for that edition of Sunday SETI. And until next Thursday, Still Marshall saying, have yourself a fantastic Thursday night.